If I could go back and sit down with my 30-year-old self, there are a lot of money conversations we would have. I just turned 40, and over the last 5 years, I completely switched careers and I became a certified financial planner. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go become a financial professional, but what I can tell you is that going through that process made me realize how differently I think about money now that I'm 40 compared to how I thought about it in my early 30s. What surprised me is that most of what slowed me down when it came to money was not because I lacked information or not enough financial literacy. That played a small part of it, that I didn't know about investing or the stock market, or I didn't know how to build my net worth. But what slowed me down even more than that came from beliefs I had about money. So today, I want to share 10 things I got wrong about money in my 30s, because now when I look back, I know that my biggest breakthroughs were mostly from changing the way I thought about money and building wealth. Hello and welcome for those new here. My name is Lissa. I'm a certified financial planner. I help women build wealth and build an abundant mindset. So if that's your vibe, make sure you subscribe. Let's get into it. The first thing I got wrong about money in my 30s is I thought making more money would solve all of my financial problems. To be clear, income is important. Earning is important. Having resources is important. Because if you're struggling to pay bills, cover your necessities, if you don't feel like you're making progress towards your goals, more money can obviously help all of those things. So I don't want to minimize that. But I did used to think that having financial peace would come if I had a bigger paycheck. I thought there'd be a certain number where everything would finally click into place. I would stop worrying. I would feel safe. I would feel secure. I would finally feel like I'd made it and that I don't have to stress about getting laid off, losing my job, having a big unexpected emergency come about. So while I do think income can contribute to the path towards financial peace, income and financial peace are not the same thing. You can make more money and still feel anxious. You can double your income and still avoid your finances, make less than stellar financial decisions. You can make more money and then still feel like you have no idea where it went. That can happen at any income level. So for me, the biggest shift was really believing that earning more was not going to magically fix all of my financial problems. The small tweak and shift was learning how to manage what I had with more clarity and intention was the path towards finding that financial peace. That's the mindset shift. And then the practical side was creating systems, automating savings, automating investing, knowing where my money was going, building all these good money habits over time alongside increasing my income. That's when I finally was able to find financial peace. Number 2, the second thing I got wrong was I thought financial literacy automatically led to financial success. Financial professionals like me talk about this all the time, how we lack financial literacy, we lack financial education. We're not taught it in schools. Even for those of you who have learned it in school, it doesn't always apply once you reach adulthood. It's not like you automatically understand everything there is to know about your paychecks, about deductions, about taxes, about buying insurance, about having an estate plan. So yes, financial literacy is important. Financial education is important. I'm biased, but I think financial education is something we can do on an ongoing basis. There doesn't have to be an end date. But what I've had to learn about financial literacy and financial education is that knowledge and behavior are two completely different things. You can be financially literate and know a lot of things about money, but that doesn't automatically make you good with money. I actually have noticed that Some of the hardest people, hardest clients that I've worked with are the people who see themselves as financially literate and financially educated, because it's harder for me to coach them into better behaviors because they already think they know it all. So it's one thing to be confident with your financial education and knowledge. I think you should be confident the more you know. But just having more knowledge doesn't mean your behaviors always match up. Financial success comes from, yes, having that knowledge, understanding how money works, but then consistently acting on what you know, building good habits, and building a good relationship with money. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is the challenge is implementation. It's actually turning your financial knowledge into good money habits. It is not letting your financial knowledge stop you from learning more because you think you know it all. It's building systems that make making good financial decisions a lot easier. It's basically creating an environment where you can thrive financially and where you don't have to rely on day-to-day motivation. It's implementing what you know into repeatable, simple systems. Number 3. The third thing I got wrong is I used to think that wealthy people just had more discipline than everyone else, that they got to where they did in life because they just knew how to do everything right. They never made any mistakes. So in a way, I attributed rich people with having good discipline and willpower. But what I understand now is a lot of times when you build wealth, yeah, you have to have discipline, but it doesn't have to be like totally tied to you as a personal trait. You can build systems that help take that discipline off your back. If your systems are set up where, for example, money is getting direct deposited into a savings account, that prevents you from even having to turn on your discipline, right? It's just happening. You don't have to put any effort into it. You can just set up the system. And if you've watched other videos of mine before, you know that I talk a lot about automation, automatic investing, automatic savings, automatic bill pay when you can. These automations can remove the hundreds of decisions we have to make every day in life. Number 4, another thing I got wrong about money is I thought I was behind financially. I know I'm not the only person who has felt this way. I think a lot of people feel this way. I think it's easy to look around and see people you consider as your peers, people of your same age, people you went to school with, and feel like you're behind them. Maybe someone you graduated high school with is buying a house and you're nowhere near having the amount you need for a down payment. Maybe you hear about people maxing out their retirement accounts and you struggle to put even 5% of your income into a retirement account. Maybe it's friends that you see taking amazing vacations and flying first class and doing all these amazing things on Instagram and thinking to yourself, well, I can't afford that. There are a lot of signals that we can receive in our lives that might tell us we're behind. What I want you to do and to start training yourself to do if you fit into that bucket is to remember that there's no timeline here. Age is a construct, time is a construct, and the fact that most of us don't receive financial education and the fact that most of us all come from different backgrounds, there's no actual real timeline for any of this.
There's not like, oh, by the time you're 30, you should be making 6 figures. Oh, by the time you're 40, your net worth should be blank amount. Oh, by the time you retire at age 59 and a half, you should have this much in your retirement account.
All of us have different lifestyles that cost different amounts of money. Some of us live more modestly. Some of us live luxurious lives. The amount that we need in our lives differs. So there really is no way to compare yourself to someone else just because you're the same age or you live in the same neighborhood. Everyone has different situations and different needs. You might not know that someone who, drives an older car than you might actually make a ton of money, but maybe they don't spend a lot on cars because they have more medical bills that they have to deal with, right? We just don't know enough about everyone's situation that it makes it almost silly to compare ourselves, even to people, like I said, your same age, people you work with, your colleagues. It's hard to compare. There's really no behind or ahead. And that is a big mindset shift that I think most people struggle to accept. I have finally accepted that in this last decade of my 30s because I realized like it doesn't do me any good. I think there's a small percentage of people who thinking that way might motivate you, right? If you're motivated because you see someone living the life that you want to live and that motivates you to earn more, to invest more, that could be a good thing. But at the end of the day, I think most people who feel they're behind, it's less of a motivator and it's more of something that weighs them down. So rather than thinking, am I ahead or behind someone else? I would just ask, am I making progress compared to where I was a year ago, 5 years ago? Am I in a good place that I'm happy with? And if not, can I find the path to get there? This is how you reduce financial anxiety, is not by comparing to others, is by looking at your own path because that's the only path that you can control. Number 5, another thing I got wrong was I thought investing was the hardest part of building wealth. Stocks sound complicated, especially when you never learned them growing up. Investing for a very long time always felt like the most intimidating thing to me when it came to money. There's so much terminology, so many different opinions and strategies. There's so many people on the internet that make it sound more complicated than it has to be. But I will say, once you understand the basics, investing itself is actually pretty straightforward. You buy assets, you buy things, financial securities, tangible assets, you buy things that can grow in value. What I think is much harder than topics like investing is consistency. The harder part is continuing to invest when the market goes up and down. The harder part is staying patient when nothing seems to be changing, nothing is happening. The hard part is trusting a process that can take years or decades to show you the fruits of your labor, or not labor, because ultimately you don't want to be putting in a lot of energy and effort. So what I had to learn is that building wealth is not about finding the perfect investment. It's about learning enough and then being consistent enough to allow time to do its thing, meaning allowing your money to compound over time. Number 6, another thing I got wrong about money was I used to think of it as math, as numbers, as dollar figures. And yes, money includes numbers and dollar figures and math. The numbers matter. I had to learn a lot of this when I became a certified financial planner, like how to do actual calculations on valuations and forecasting. But in the past 5-6 years, I've also learned a lot about how money is also tied to psychology. It is related to our emotions, our habits, our identities. Money has a lot of fear tied to it, but we can also feel confident with money. We have a lot of stories and narratives that we tell ourselves in relation to money. This is something I don't talk about as often because it's just, it's too much to be listing out all of my certifications. But I am a trauma of money certified practitioner, which means I went through a program where we learned how deeply rooted money is in our sense of being. We are human. A lot of us have faced so many financial experiences, both positive and negative, in our lives to date. And a lot of us have faced financial trauma. And it comes in so many different shapes and forms. It's not just, growing up poor. There are a lot of different ways to experience financial trauma. And long story short, money impacts every aspect of our lives, the life we're able to live. So as much as some people like to not care about money because money's not important, ultimately I think it is because there are limited resources. Society has to operate by trading value, and money is a tool and a means for doing that. So what I've learned and what I've had to shift in how I viewed money was not just looking at it purely from the point of a number and counting the amount of resources I have. I also learned that you have to think about it in relation to what it can do for you, the value it brings to your life, how you interact with it. I think financial success is not just about building your net worth, but it's about feeling good about your money, understanding what this resource actually does to your life, good or bad. Number 7, the seventh thing on this list that I got wrong about money is I thought building your net worth was the ultimate goal. Like accumulate, 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 build your net worth to 6 figures, then become a millionaire, then whatever happens after that. Now, don't get me wrong. As a financial professional, I think net worth is important. If you're not familiar with the term, net worth is simply a dollar figure that represents everything you own minus everything you owe. It's a useful measurement that tracks your progress with finances and building wealth over time. And yes, I do think people should know their number and know over the long term if they're making progress with it. But what I've learned and the shift I've had to make is net worth is not a destination. It's not like, oh, I want to build my net worth to $1 million, and once I hit that, done. I'm done. I've hit the goal. The goal goes a lot deeper. The goal is freedom. The goal is having options. The goal is flexibility. The goal is being able to make confident financial decisions that are aligned with your values instead of feeling trapped by money or stressed out by money. I've seen a lot of people so focused on growing numbers, like growing their salary amount, their yearly salary amount, or growing their net worth because they want to be able to call themselves a millionaire. But then they forget why they wanted wealth in the first place. If you personally want wealth because you want to flex and it's going to make you, feel cooler than everyone else, then I honestly don't think my channel is the right place for you. I view money as a tool, and I think that the purpose of the tool matters. So yes, track your net worth, build your assets, pay attention to your finances, but more importantly, understand why you want it. Keep asking yourself why you are working this job you're working, why you're living in the house you're living in, why you want this level of lifestyle. Once you can understand the why behind all of your decisions, it helps align you better with your financial goals, how hard you work, how much money you need to accumulate before you can actually retire. Once you kind of take that perspective, I think you start to create a life that feels more free. And this can happen at different levels of net worth. It really is not tied to a number. It's not like you build your net worth to $1 million and you finally feel free. There's a lot of other stuff that happens under the hood that I think is important to think about. Number 8, another thing I got wrong is I thought optimizing mattered more than consistency. Here's what I mean. I used to spend a lot of time looking for the perfect strategy, the perfect budget that was going to save every single dollar that I possibly could, be as frugal as I possibly could. I used to think about okay, what is the perfect account, the perfect credit card, the perfect investment, because I want to do this right. This was when I first started getting into personal finance. And while that sounds like the right approach, the smart approach, what it did was it halted my progress. I had to realize that there were other people with less than perfect plans, but at least they were consistent. They were making progress. They were consistently saving, investing, utilizing credit card rewards points. What I had to learn is that consistency is the most important thing. You can try to be perfect if you want, but if you can just accept that being perfect is almost impossible, but at least you can try to be consistent, that is going to keep you on track forever. There's really no end date if you can just consistently follow a plan as best as you can. The best example I have for this is when people think they have to know everything there is to know about investing before putting a dollar in the stock market. Yes, there's risk that comes with investing, but sometimes trying to be perfect can be a very expensive form of procrastination. All right, we got 2 more to go. Stick with me. Number 9, another thing I got wrong is I thought financial confidence had to come before taking action. I had to feel good about making this financial decision before I could make that decision. Again, my example is with investing. I thought that in order to not stress or feel anxiety about investing, I had to build confidence. And I did that by trying to learn everything about it. But I wholeheartedly believe that confidence comes from taking the action. It's not something you have to build before you can go do the thing, right? Build confidence before I can start investing. What actually happens is the opposite. And I'm just using investing as an example, but this applies to different elements of your finances. But if you start investing, you open the account, you make a transfer, you start tracking your money, you make regular investments over time, that is when you build the confidence. It was kind of backwards to think that I had to build that first before I could get started. Sometimes you kind of just have to dive into the deep end and start. All right, we're at the end of the list. The 10th thing I got wrong about money in my 30s. I thought that I would always have to be earning more and more and more as the years went on. Otherwise, that meant I was a failure. For a good chunk of my career, my early 20s through when I got laid off in my mid 30s, I increased my salary almost every year. And I almost got used to that. Like, I saw that as part of my success, that if I can increase how much I make every year, I'm doing well. God forbid I ever change my salary amount and it goes down, or I lose my job. That would be a failure. I had to change my perspective about that, and I truly believe this now, is making shifts in life, in career, that affect your income, your salary, or shift your net worth. Those aren't failures or successes. Those are you living life. So I got laid off 4 years ago, and I went from making the most I ever made to making the least I ever made, all in the snap of a finger. At first, I was like, oh my God, this does not feel good. It feels unsettling. It felt like if I was living on this amount, how could I ever possibly live at this amount and feel secure? So it took me some time, but because I had learned so much about personal finance at that point, I felt more secure than I ever had been in the past. I had an emergency fund, I had a runway, I had a plan, I had a path towards making more money, building my own business. And I'm not going to say it was smooth sailing. I still had my own struggles and problems that I faced during that time where I was making zero income or making very little income. But what I got wrong was associating upward progress with success and setbacks with failures. And I just don't think that's the case. I don't even think getting laid off and making, $0 was a failure. I think it actually opened my eyes to reassess what's important to me. Yes, I would love to make more and I would love to increase how much I make year after year. But the big thing with me now is if that doesn't happen, if I face a setback, if I have a slow year, if I have a work optional year because I don't want to work that much, I don't see that as a failure. I actually think that that's a success because I personally feel good about where I'm at. So that was a list. Those are 10 different things. And to be honest, there's more than 10, but those are 10 that I picked for this video. Those are 10 things that I definitely got wrong about money 10 years ago that I feel differently about now. So I hope that was helpful and I hope it was enlightening in some way. If anything in this video was interesting to you, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what resonated and what didn't. And until next time, peace out.